अभी थोड़ी ही देर में यहाँ पर फाटा वॉश क्लस्टर की मीटिंग मुनक़िद होने वाली है। आइए इस मीटिंग की चीज़ा कार्रवाई देखते हैं। आज के मीटिंग के एजेंडा पॉइंट्स में शामिल IDP updates by UNOCHA, Kurram updates by UNICEF and ACF, dengue fever prevention and awareness, early recovery assessment in FATA और any other business शामिल हैं।
Okay, I think we can start for our wash cluster FATA meeting with the start of the recitation of Mr. Hikmat Sheikh.
قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين صدق الله العظيم.
Okay, I think most of the participants are although the same, but still we can have a quick round of introduction to have Mr. Hikmat Sheikh so that he can understand who he is.
Hikmat Sheikh, Design Engineer, Office of Chief Engineer, FATA. Technical Engineer, FATA. Abbas, I am Vice President.
Jamaluddin from Early Recovery Working Group.
Naturallah from PLO, FATA. Ijlanullah from PhD. Muhammad Ashfaq from Children First. Zuriman Qasim from Children First.
शकील बेराव खान Children First.
Muhammad Tufail Kurram Welfare Home.
Sayyid Zafar Bukhari, Credo Power.
Khalid Aziz Khatak representing HRDs.
Ahmad Shahid Hezda. Azhar from Sarar.
Asif from UNICEF. A.O.B from ACF.
Muhammad Shah representing IDPs Hospital.
And Jamal Shah, the wash cluster coordinator. Yes.
Amirpur Environmental Health Engineer Division.
Sir, Abbas will be shot. Yes, please.
Faisal Aman Senior Engineer Audit Kohar.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can go for our agenda item. Our first agenda item is IDP updates. It was written UNOCHA, but UNOCHA is not here. So we request Asif from UNICEF to give us an update on the general situation of IDPs, and then also if we can start with UNICEF's updates.
I will be sharing updates of IDPs regarding Kurram and Moment Agency camps. Currently, there are about 95 families registered in New Durrani camp, Kurram Agency, and about 2,169 families can host.
To the Kurram Agency.
Kurram Agency, yes.
Asif, can you repeat the figure of the host families?
2,169 in host communities.
Yeah.
Some of the families, like 70 or 80 families, have been repatriated from the New Durrani camp before Eid, and now repatriation of about 150 families is planned on 24th of this month from the camp. Updates from the moment is that about 3,465 families have been previously registered in the Nahaki IDPs camp, but for the last 4 or 5 days, on daily basis, 20 to 30 IDP families are coming from to Tehsil Safi and Behzai Tehsil, where a minor scale of operation has been started once again. So 20 to 30 families, till now about 70 or 80 families have newly registered in the Nahaki IDPs camp.
Okay, just to stop you here and then you can continue. Just wanted to add on here. I mean, generally there are. General situation is that there are four camps, I think, overall, which have IDPs. One is Jalozai, one is Benazir complex, and one is Nahaki, and one is Tokh Sarai. Sorry, 5 camps. Yes, one is Tokh Sarai and Hangu, and the 5th one is Durrani camp in Kurram. So these are the 5 camps. If you think about these 2 camps, I mean, Jalozai and Benazir complex, they are there for the last almost now 3 years, because they are having IDPs from Bajod and Moman. Most of the IDPs have already returned, and there are certain early recovery activities which have been started and which we will discuss in a short while in those districts, in those agencies. but still there are IDPs in these two camps. As far as Toksara is concerned, the IDPs are from Kurram agency, no, from Orakzai agency.
Yeah.
Significant numbers of IDPs have already returned to Orakzai agency, but there are still pockets where IDPs have not yet returned and they are residing in Toksara camp.
About 5,011 IDPs are living at the moment in Toksara.
Yes. And then we are talking about these camps in the new Durrani camp in Kurram, which is the latest camp, and then the Mohammed camp, Narki camp. So these are the 5 camps.
Yes.
That was about camps. But just on the non-camp IDPs, I would say that there are still IDPs in Tank and DA Khan from South Waziristan agency. There are IDPs who are now living in these certain districts of Peshawar, Nowshera, Charsadda, Mardan, etc., even these lower, which are the IDPs from Bajwad and Mohammed. And then there are also IDPs from Khyber agency, from Bara. Then there are IDPs in Kohat and in Hangu, which are from Orakzai. So if you calculate all these, there are still over 1 million IDPs which you can say they are not camp IDPs. At the same time, there is a significant number of IDPs or people who were displaced who have already returned back to their places of origin. So these IDPs have returned back to Bajawar, to Mohammed, to Orakzai, to South Waziristan agency, and to a certain extent to Khyber agency also. I just wanted to clarify this thing that we are in a complex type of situation where we have to think about IDPs who are in camps, number one. Then we have to think about IDPs who are not in camps but in the settled areas, but not in camps. IDPs inside FATA who are not in camps, like in the case of Kurram. And then the fourth category is IDPs who have returned back to their places of origin, and the fifth one is people who never left their places of origin, although their places were affected. So these are the 5 different type of categories. Now when we are talking about the nature of intervention, they are different. Some of them are still emergency in nature, and some of them are early recovery in nature. So I wanted to differentiate that. We will come further to this, but now I will hand over again to Asif to continue with this.
I may also share figures of Jaluzai and Toksara. Jaluzai currently 34,800 IDPs are living in Jaluzai, and in Toksara 5,011 IDPs. As far the UNICEF response is concerned, in both camps in FATA, in Mohammed and in Kurram agency, all over the wash facilities have been provided by UNICEF, and the figures I can share with IMO cluster, but almost all the requirements related to wash have been provided by UNICEF to IDPs. The response in host communities of the Kurram is only up to the distribution of wash NFIs. About 700 to 800 hygiene kits and 300 buckets have been distributed so far in host communities, but sooner we will be starting our activities in host communities of Kurram as well.
That's all fine. You don't want to discuss, or that would you will discuss under early recovery?
Early recovery.
The one, the support group, okay. Okay, so ACF.
Yeah, ACF, I think we have not so much to say about Kurram. We were very much interested to move in there. We've had very preliminary assessment of Kurram and areas around New Durrani and Sada and a couple of other villages around this settlement. The information has been compiled. However, we are hoping to receive the program NOC to allow us to go into Kurram. So at the moment,
You are still waiting for the NOC?
we're waiting for the NOC, and it's probably a month now. We are hoping to receive it, and we are hoping to talk to UNOCHA, because the initial budget that we had put for Kurram, with the floods that have happened, we have diverted it a little bit, so we hope to get on a table with OCHA to balance it up. That's our update for Kurram.
The camps, as far as camps are concerned, they are being, the wash services are being provided by UNICEF, wherever they are, mostly, except one camp, which is the Benazir complex, where it's the Pakistan Red Crescent Society with the support of ICRC. But that's the situation. As far as off-camp is concerned, what we are seeing is that the people who are IDPs in the settled districts, they are almost neglected now. I mean, they don't receive any support. There can be many reasons. Maybe they are now settled in these places. They are now sort of residents of Nowshera and Chasada, and then they are free to live here. I mean, there is no restriction on them if they want to live here forever.
Yeah.
That's their choice. But maybe they have needs, but it's still, I mean, we are in the situation where they are almost forgotten, I would say. Then we have fresh influx, like in the case of Kurram. So when there is a fresh influx, they are getting some sort of assistance as they are providing them.
Yes, a little bit of problem about the water, and foods, medicines.
The first masala, the medicine was not there for the health of the garlic, and I'm going to take a wash.
Talk about the same point which you said, that what should we get out of these meetings? I mean, something tangible, something decision.
Exactly, I mean, why we are meeting?
So, it's your expertise, you have been working in the IDP situation with refugees and everyone else. But when I see it as an implementer as well, I see that if there are 10 families coming into an area, I must be able to understand what the caloric need is, food intake. For example, 2,000 to 2,200 is the caloric need. So do we have any kind of an assessment of if there are 2,595 families in Camp Kurram, Durrani camp? So what exactly is the requirement for them? Like same number of tents, but the same numbers of hygiene kits. So if we have such a table of assessment that this is the requirement, 2,595 is the family numbers, but 595 have been already provided by a certain agency. 2,000 is now the gap. So I guess we'll be able to more accurately approach and address these things. So if we can
yes and no, I mean, I will answer your question. I mean, it's much easier for certain items, for example, food. I mean, you just count the number of people. That's very easy. But if you are talking about drinking water and sanitation, and then off-camp, then it becomes very, very difficult.
Yeah, off-camp is...
Off-camp, you don't know whether there is an existing, what is the existing situation, how much the existing situation can cater for, and how much is extra required. And that is not possible until and unless you go there and physically verify what is the existing situation, how much water it is giving, how much the source is giving, and whether it is enough or not, or the quality is appropriate or not. Hygiene kit, so yes, you can just count the number of people and you can distribute. Yes, for that, I mean, to that extent it is fine. What I was thinking here was that, I mean, when we are meeting here, we should come up with tangible. What I have seen in the last few meetings, and I have been discussing with my colleagues also, is that most of the agencies find out. What I was proposing, I mean, now there is we call it a donor fatigue. There is a donor fatigue. This emergency, I mean, the IDP emergency from various areas of FATA is now almost 3.5 years old. In 3.5 years, and then Pakistan has been subjected to various types of disasters, I would say, natural and man-made. I mean, floods, and again floods in Sindh, and the previous floods in all the country. So, whatever, I mean, for example, if a donor wanted to give Pakistan $10 million, now it is being diverted to another emergency which is probably more pressing. And these people are forgotten. I mean, we are meeting here, we are discussing here, but we should find some way out. What I am proposing here is that I totally agree with what Jamal was saying, that we should have some plan. What we are supposed to do, what we should be doing.
What's the gap?
What's the gap of that survey? That would give you some indication of what type of services are required. Now, my view was that we should use this survey, an assessment, I would say, which is done by a reputable organization in the country. NASPAC is a very reputable organization, and to use it to explain to donors what is our requirement, what is the problem with us, what is the problem which we are facing. Now, I have the survey from the 66. What I would propose to you people, I mean whoever has presence in certain areas, and this would be for now at least on volunteer basis. And I totally agree with what he said, and it's the same lines. When we are talking about an area off camp, I would say, because I camp I know that, I mean it is already being reported. What is the problem in that area? So for that, first of all we have to identify what are the people doing now. Of course they are drinking water from somewhere, otherwise they will die. So what are the people doing now? What is, I mean, the existing wash situation in that particular area? Now the second column is, what is the problem in this existing wash situation? मसला क्या है इसमें? अगर वो ठीक है तो ठीक है, खत्म. अब लिख देंगे कि there is no problem. लेकिन अगर if there is a problem, identify that problem. What is the problem? The third column is, what is the solution of this problem which I have identified? I mean, keeping in view the minimum sphere standards or some, not like luxury items, but minimum sphere standards. And the fourth column is giving it a dollar value. If you can come up with this type of assessment in all the affected areas, FATA I would say, particularly in FATA, where even it can be early recovery and it can be even emergency relief. And if we can get this, it will help me a lot. When I add this up, and we will, I mean, I am again and again, I was actually advocating this to OCHA for a long time, that we should have a dedicated meeting in Islamabad, particularly with the donor community, in which we can explain our issues. We may or may not get something out of it, but we can at least give it a try. I mean, somehow it has not yet been approved or successful because of other pressing issues and because of the problem which the country is facing and because of the transition. I mean, we were discussing it with OCHA, and suddenly OCHA vanished from the scene, I would say, in March or April this year. And now, I mean, we have UNDP also, and we have OCHA, of course. But I'm giving this message to both these coordinating agencies, I would say, to take this message that number one, we would like to convey this message, to convey this information to the donor community. And number two, we would like this forum to come up with this assessment. Please make it, I mean, if you do it, if you take responsibility, make it simple with these four columns. What is the existing situation? What is the problem in the existing situation? What is the solution of this problem? How much money is required? If you can come up this with your agency's name, we will present it. We will, I mean, make it in a presentation. We will develop it as a presentation and present it to the donor community in Islamabad. We will have a dedicated meeting in Sarina or wherever it is required. We will have this presentation. I don't know whether we get it, the funding, or we don't, but at least we can try.
So, if you have already begun may I suggest an option to which we have only 5 areas, I guess 5 So, whichever IP is working in certain area, for example in Kurram New Durrani camp, if an organization is strong enough to have an assessment or have already done an assessment, why don't they share? Similarly, for cases for Benazir camp and the host communities, if they are nearby or something. So, what I'm going to suggest to you is raise your hands for each area where they can share any information. And the UNICEF partners are already having
What I would coming here was that, I mean, I was not talking about camp. I was talking about non-camp IDPs. Host. So what I was suggesting here was that UNICEF IPs are in camps. Yes, that's their part. But those organizations who have a presence, for example, in OCHA agency, in Kurram agency, in Moman, in Bajor, in all those areas, just come up with a simple.
Kurram Welfare Home is one. They are sitting at the back.